First of all, I don't know what the week's been like for you, but it's been great for me. I have enjoyed this so much. I love learning, and I've learned as much from you as you might have learned from me. I hope that's the case, but I know what I've learned. And so we've kind of come full circle, because I'm supposed to be here as a teacher with teacher leaders, and I've learned so much. But I want to go back. I have to tell you, people were a little worried. What if we do the door prizes first? Will the people who don't win door prizes leave? No, not the dedicated. We'll stay till the end. And this could be another moment to have one last great thought. But aren't you already here? Aren't you already just kind of, I'm done? Unless the thought is Cabernet, I'm out. If that offended you, sorry, but that made it emotional. So I thought we'd go back to the whole idea of emotional and laugh a little bit more, because I want to take you back all the way full circle for me. I shared with you my experience with Principal John Heath. H-E-A-T-H. Yeah. John Heath and I did not get along in 8th grade, and for the little bit of the beginning of my teaching career, we struggled as well. But early in September, I got the schedule of announced teacher observations, and mine was scheduled for November the 5th. On September the 13th, when I got the letter, I started thinking, I need to revamp my content, because there's a lot in earth science that is not naturally engaging. So I'm going to do the best earth science content the day he comes. We are going to do the planets, because kids like planets. So I had planned for months this activity, this really cool demonstration that the kids were going to be doing hands-on with Coke bottles and spinning forces. It was going to be so excellent. And the day of my announced observation, I drove to school, got to the parking lot, and realized I left all the crap on the kitchen table. And I said an ugly word. It was an ugly word. And my wife was in the car. She said, I do not like that word. I said, I know you don't, but I'm being observed today, and I left all my stuff on the table, and my wife said the ugly word. And then she said, are you kidding me, John? He already hates you. I said, well, that's not helping, Oprah. I need some help here. There's no time to go back home. And she said, okay, wait a minute. Take a deep breath. John, what are you teaching today? Talk it to me. Talk it to me. Maybe while you're talking, something will come to you, because I'm really panicking for you. I said, okay, I'm going to introduce the planets. And my wife, the band director, said, oh, the planets? John, I adore the planets. I said, you adore the planets? What are you talking about? Who says they adore the planets? She said, aren't you talking about that beautiful orchestral symphony written by Gustav Holst known as The Planets? I said, no, I'm talking about the ones that go around the sun. I am married to Melissa Sue, so she dug into her bag and she said, John, I have the music right here to the planets. Maybe you could use that somehow. You know how much John Heath loves modalities. Because in the late 70s and 80s, the thing to do as a teacher was make sure you were teaching to the modalities. Some lessons should be auditory, some should be visual, and some should be kinesthetic. They made you director of curriculum if you could do it all at the same time. So I thought, I don't know what I'm going to do with this music. And then the first bell rang. So I grabbed that 8-track and I ran to class. At 10 till 8, I get to my door, and there stands John Heath, and I am confused because he's supposed to come third period. I said, Mr. Heath, what are you doing here? He said, this is your announced observation, John. It's been on the calendar since September. I said, I'm aware of that, sir, but I thought you were coming third period. He said, did you forget today is Wonderful Wednesday? Wonderful Wednesday was an idea that surely started in California. The whole intent was to help middle school kids be more engaged. One day every other week, you change the schedule. As if engagement and confusion were the same thing. And because sometimes in curriculum you need more than the regular 50-minute block, so today third period is first, and it's 2 hours long. And I have an 8-track. And he looked me square in the eyes. He said, eager to see what I see. And he walked past me, and I thought, me too. And here's the other problem. See, third period was my worst class. And it really had nothing to do with the children. It was just a scheduling mix-up. Because third period is where the children who shouldn't be together got put together. I had 16 girls who also were in the gifted seminar and played woodwinds in the honors orchestra. 16 Melissa Sues on steroids. And the rest of the class was 14 bubbas who were in 7th period athletics and received either special ed reading or special ed math or both. And they're together, and I have an 8-track. But as I walked in, I guess the color drained from my face because Ginny Good, that's the name from Melissa Sue, Ginny Good, the first chair flute player, said, "Mr. Antonetti, are you okay? You look pale. You don't look well." I said, "Well, look at you, observant little scientist." I said, "I am a little nervous because, as you notice, Mr. Heath is in the back of the room. He is not here looking at you. He's looking at me. And we're going to have a conversation about how I teach today. And I'm a little nervous." And then one of the girls said, "Oh, so what are we going to do today?" And I said, "Well, I'm glad you asked. We're going to learn about something." And then I realized I don't have anything else. And at the same time I realized it, so did the girls. And the girls were like, "Where's his box? He always has stuff. He always has stuff." Carla Fournier said out loud, "Mr. Antonetti, are you so nervous that you forgot your stuff? You don't have your box." I said, "I know I don't have a box." I am well aware that there's no box. And that is because, let me share with you, because in the summer before you guys come to school, we have what we call professional development. And during our professional development this summer, Mr. Heath asked all the teachers, when he comes into our class, we should try something new. That's why I don't have a box. I'm trying something new, okay? And so don't you worry about it, because we're going to experiment just as he asked me to. But I do have something to get us started. We're going to learn about the planet, and I thought we would start with some music. The planets, that's as far as I got, because Ginny Good knows this music. She said, "Oh my gosh, are we going to listen to The Planets by composer Gustav Holst?" I said, "We are. Are you familiar with that?" She said, "It's my favorite." And I said, "Well, then tell everybody about it." And between Ginny and Carla and Stephanie, we learned this. Gustav Holst was a prolific composer. Many of the Anglican hymns that made it into hymnals were written by him, but perhaps his most famous work is The Planets. It is a piece of program music, which they also taught us was music that when you hear, you're supposed to see something. It tells a story. And so the girls continued to tell the class that when you listen to the music, you can close your eyes and see the planets or the gods for whom they were named. And I said, I could not have explained that better myself. So that's what we're going to do. We are going to listen to this music as an introduction to the planets. And what I thought we'd do is we'd start with a piece of paper. Hey, Pete, take a piece of paper and fold it in half like this. I had no idea what we were going to do with this paper. But I still have an hour and 50 minutes. So it's like, fold it this way, not this way, this way, this way, this way, this way. Uh-huh, you got it? Mm-hmm, let me check. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. On my observation, I got nice modeling of the hot dog fold. I know. And then I opened the paper and I said, 2 columns. 2 columns, 8th graders. If I want you to think in 2 columns, what do you think I'm going to ask you to do? And one of my bubbas said, we're going to compare 2 things, aren't we? And I said, we are. We sure are. What do you think I'm going to have you compare? And one of the girls said, are we going to compare the inner rocky planets to the outer gaseous planets? I said, we could. What else do you think? And one of the girls said, are we going to compare what he tells us in the music to what's true? Yes. Yes, we are. I cannot believe you guessed that. Oh. So on this side, why don't you put 3 planets? Let's do Mars, Jupiter, and Venus, because those are my favorites. So we're going to listen to this music, and you just tell me what you hear. This is like primitive music videos, boys and girls. See, this was 1984, the year before MTV started, but all junior high kids around the country are watching Saturday morning videos instead of cartoons now, and everybody loves the video. So that was my thought. So I said, what we're going to do is you're going to listen to this music, and you're going to imagine the music video. Now, you can't get it wrong because maybe you will hear emotions. Write them down. Maybe you'll see action or events. Write that down. Maybe you'll feel color and hear color. You can't get it wrong because I don't know what you will hear. But I am going to let you have plenty of time. I'm going to play each one for about 8 or 9 minutes. So just, enjoy it. Here we go. This is Mars. And they all wrote. This is Jupiter. Da da dee da 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 da. And they wrote, and I thought, this is working. This is Venus. And they wrote, we have half a page. I have half a chance. I said, okay, boys and girls, that took not as much time as I thought. But okay, we're fine. So what we're going to do now is we're going to compare what Gustav told us that he knew in the early 1900s to what we know almost 100 years later. It is now 1984. We now have more facts and knowledge about the planets. Where could we get some facts about our planets to put in this column? And one of the girls said, are we going to go to the library? No, I did not book the library. Are we going to take notes? No, no overhead. No. One of the girls said, what about the chart on page 152, summary of the chapter? I said, yeah. Thank you, McGraw-Hill. Let's open that up. And there's just a whole lot of facts, summary of each planet. What I want you to do is I want you to put a fact that you find most interesting, but make sure it's something he would not have known. Because in the chapter, it tells how we learned and when we learned things about the planets. So make sure it's after 1918. And then put it over here. And then here's the creative part. This part must be true. But even scientists need to think creatively. So when you know this is true, I want you to decide, does the music still fit the truth? And you can tell me yes or no, but tell me why, dependent upon the truth. Does that make sense? And they all said yes. And I said, well, then do that. So the kids are writing and they're working independently or they're starting to whisper back and forth. And as I'm walking around, I'm seeing great thinking. But John Heath is back there marking all kinds of stuff. He can't even hear what they're saying. He's probably marking my proximity or something. And I thought, you know what? This is really going well. I want credit for this thing that I planned. So I said, boys and girls, we're going to stop for just a minute. I want Mr. Heath to hear your thinking and make sure we're thinking critically to creatively. So girls, what did you put for Mars? One of the girls said, I wrote down that Mars was ominous and angry. That's how it sounded to me, ominous and angry. I said, I can hear that too. What's your true fact? Well, my true fact is there is no free oxygen, no water on Mars. Mr. Antonetti, we need oxygen and water. If we were suddenly on Mars with no oxygen and water, we would be angry. I said, okay, that works. Boys, what'd you say? Yeah, I wrote down, Mr. Antonetti, I wrote down that Mars sounded dark and swirly and black. And that still works, Mr. Antonetti, because I wrote down the same thing she did. I wrote down no oxygen. And if you're trying to breathe on Mars with no oxygen, after a while, you're going to see dark, and then swirly, and then black. Yeah, okay. So girls, what'd you say about Jupiter? And one of my gifted girls said, the music spoke to me of largesse. I was 21 years old. I had never heard the word largesse. So I said, it did to me too. And then I went back to my people. Okay, boys, what did you write down? And Michael said, I wrote down Miss America. The music sounds like the music at the end of Miss America when she wins and she takes the crown. Mr. Anthony, that still works because I wrote down 4 facts. I wrote down that Jupiter is the biggest planet. That guy probably already knew that. But I don't know if he knew that it had the strongest gravitational pull and the strongest magnetic field because of its size. And also, it has the single largest weather system in the entire solar system, known as the giant red spot. I said, okay, so connect it for me. He said, Jupiter is like Miss America. It won everything. I said, okay, cool. So then I went to Andrea, and Andrea is a student who's just moved to Marion, Arkansas from Irving, California. So what did you say, Andrea? Oh my gosh, Venus was effervescent and sparkly. I said, okay, explain that to me. Well, as you know, Mr. Antonetti, Venus is the second planet from the sun, and as such receives a tremendous amount of sunlight. Yet its cloud cover is so dense that 86% of the light that enters the atmosphere of Venus is reflected back into the solar system. So if you know where to look at night, you can see Venus, our sparkly, effervescent evening star. I was like, you go, Jan Brady. Okay, boys, what do you say? And already, David's already talking. No, the planet is not pretty. I wrote the music was pretty, the planet is not. Mr. Antonetti, it says in the book that every day it rains sulfuric acid of the same concentration as battery acid. Electrical storms every day. You're standing on Venus, it starts raining acid, you are not thinking pretty. I said, boys, girls, I love the way you took the fact and the interpretation and put that together. That was that went as well as I thought it would. That was really great. Now, that was an auditory lesson because we were listening and then seeing. So what we're going to do today is tomorrow we're going to do more of a seeing thing. But I've got another 45 minutes. So what I thought we would see now is, I'm just going to put some notes on the board about the planets. And then tomorrow, yes, for homework, you can turn in the chart on page 170. There's a close activity where some of the words are missing about length of day, atmospheric condition, length of year, rotation, etc. And you'll just fill in that if you so choose to do that assignment. But perhaps a more fun assignment would be to be like Gustav Holst. Let's bring out our creativity. And you can take any planet we learn about today and draw me a picture of what it would look like to be on that planet. Now, I don't care about your interpretation because I've never been to another planet other than Earth. But you must be telling me true facts when you interpret it. Does that work? I said, yeah, okay, cool. So I lectured a little bit. At the end, I said, so you've got plenty of information now between me and the book. Remember, if you do the chart in the back of the chapter, you'll just put it in the homework basket when you come in tomorrow. But if you do the picture, I would love for you to share those pictures with the class so we can see the way you saw the truth. That'll be great. Today was auditory. Tomorrow we'll look at yours, and that'll be visual. I will see you tomorrow. And they walked out, and as they walked out, John Heath slowly approached my table, and he said, Mr. Antonetti, I got to tell you, I'm surprised. And I said, me too. I said, you go first. What surprised you? He said, what surprised me was how quickly the kids were thinking. He said, I expect you to be much more traditional in your approach, that you would present some science, and then they would do something with it afterwards. He said, they were thinking from the minute they walked in here. It was organic. I said, and organic's good, right? He said, organic is that feeling when it almost feels like you're making it up as you go. And I said, I got that too. It's hard to plan for organic. It really is. Tomorrow, though, sir, is much more structured because I have a little scoring guide, and when the kids present their planets, I'll just be marking the scoring guide. It'll be a little bit more traditional as they present. And he said, I can't wait to see their pictures. I said, oh, you're coming back? He said, he said, I can see them in my head now. I want to see what the kids do. You don't mind if I pop in tomorrow? I said, well, Mr. Heath, you know what? The assignment's already done. I'd be honored to have you in class tomorrow. And he said, okay, I'll see you tomorrow, buddy. Did you hear it? John Heath just called me buddy. And as he left, I was like, okay, pal. So the next day, we're standing at the door as the kids come in, and every gifted female puts the little chart in the basket. The knowledge level repeat and fill in the blank activity goes in the basket. I was angered, and I did not control my emotions. Brain rule number 8 took over, and I said, ladies, I can't tell you how disappointed I am. Mr. Heath came back today because he wanted to see that creativity, and you all did the little homework assignment where you just filled in the words. And Jenny Good defended her friends and said, Mr. Antonetti, we had a band concert last night. Your wife's our band director. You know we were there. We can almost do that other activity in our sleep, and we did after the concert. I said, okay, but boys, nobody did it. I said, I'm just really disappointed, guys, that nobody did that assignment. I said, I really put a lot of planning into that, and I'm not going to hide my disappointment. And finally, John Heath said, Mr. Antonetti, look over here. And right by the door is a hand up. It's the hand of Kevin Miller. Let me tell you about Kevin Miller. Kevin Miller, in my teaching career, I've only been teaching a short while, but even still, all these years later, is one of the saddest children I've ever taught. Kevin Miller was in special ed reading, special ed math. Like a nice kid, he just didn't talk much. But I know that his story, his mother is in the final stages of breast cancer. There's no father, and they've lost their home. I understand that members of the Presbyterian Church are taking them in while she's in the hospital for treatment. I also heard in the lounge that they were seen sleeping in a station wagon behind Big Star grocery store on I-55. Kevin's really sad, but he's got his hand up. And I don't want him to risk being embarrassed in front of his peers or Mr. Heath. Or if we're being really honest, John Heath thinks John Antonetti is a good teacher. It's only happened for one day, and I don't want to lose that. What if something happens here that I can't control? So I just turned my back to Kevin so it would look like I didn't see him. And I said, well, boys and girls, I'm a little disappointed, but we're going to continue on. And finally, John Heath said, Mr. Antonetti, this boy has his hand up and has a picture. I said, Kevin, did you do the picture? He said, yes, sir. You want me to share it? I said, you don't have to. He said, I don't mind sharing it. And Kevin Miller showed us this picture. And class got quiet. I forgot to pull up my scoring guide. I said, Kevin, that's really quite beautiful. What planet is this? He said, well, you said we could draw whatever we wanted, so I drew Uranus. And that's when Mr. Heath did just what you did. And all the girls had to turn around and say, we don't laugh at the name of a planet, Mr. Heath. I said, okay, let's just talk about the seventh planet. Kevin, what facts have you put in here to prove that this could be the seventh planet? He said, look at the sun, Mr. Antonetti. Look at how far away I drew it. I drew it like you're looking from the planet, and you can barely see the sun up there because this planet is this many miles away at apogee and this many at perigee. I said, that's pretty cool. He said, yeah, but here's the coolest thing. Look at the clouds. I drew the clouds really, really thick because the book says that through spectrophotometry, we can believe now that the clouds are mostly frozen ammonia and frozen methane that were never even liquids. They were gases that sublimated into solids because it's so cold, because it's so far away from the sun. And look at how thick they are. The atmosphere is so thick, this is why we can still see this planet when we're looking out in the night sky, if you know where to look. It has a little bit of a greenish-blue tint to it, according to the book, with a microscope. And I went to the library and looked at pictures in the World Book, and you can see that it's just a little bit green. But mostly, I drew it green and blue to remind me how cold it is. Because think about it. Gases that froze and became ice just where they are. But here's the weirdest thing. See how I drew the clouds? I drew the clouds to look like they're coming at you. Coming at you. Because y'all know, you know whether we watch CBS or NBC, if you're watching the weather on any channel, no matter what, our weather in Arkansas always comes from Oklahoma, Kansas, and Missouri. And that's because yesterday when Mr. Antonetti was teaching rotation, the Earth's axis is mostly straight up and down. And since the Earth rotates on the axis, the atmosphere follows that. So our weather always goes this way. And that's the way 8 planets are. Remember yesterday Mr. Antonetti said 8 of them are like that? But this planet has what's called retrograde rotation. Its axis is this way. And so it's always going this way. And I mean, I know that they don't have TV channels and weather people up there. But if you were watching their weather channel, it would always look like the clouds were coming at you. Coming at you. That makes sense? Because that's what I drew. He dropped it on my table and he walked back to his chair. I hadn't marked a single thing on the scoring guide. Nobody said anything. And finally, Carla Fournier broke the silence with the Norma Ray slow clap. Kevin Miller, oh my gosh, Kevin Miller, I get it now. Coming at you, Kevin. Said, I didn't understand retrograde until you did that, but now I can see it. And I said, I taught it yesterday, Carla, and I didn't get it until coming at you. And so at the end of class, Mr. Heath said, come on my office. And I stepped by his office. He said, holy cow, John, how can we get that for every kid? I said, I don't know, because I just asked him to do it. He said, maybe you could make the task not an option. Maybe we could, how can you get that more? And so John Heath and I came up with a plan that in my lessons, I would not teach anything the first 5, 8, 10 minutes of class. I would give kids something to read, something to look at, something to manipulate, and say, figure it out. And they would tell me something they had discovered, which really is the basis of science. And then we could fill in the holes with the content that was going to be on the state MPT test. Because this was the first year, my first year of teaching was the first year Arkansas tested our children on a somewhat criterion reference test. The expectation was that all kids, even including special ed, were supposed to pass. I had a great year. In my lesson plan book, every day, that 5 minutes, and we named it in honor of Kevin, so my lesson plan said Miller time, and then Antonetti time. So we did that all year long, and the test was taken in February. The results came back over Easter break, and while we were out on spring break, my mom called my house and said, your name's in the paper. I said, for what? You're the only teacher in Crittenden County to get 100% in science. I said, you're kidding me. Nobody's told me my name's in the paper? That seemed a little odd, but okay. 100%, I'll take that. So I ran to John Heath's house. I interrupted his Easter dinner. I said, have you got the scores? He said, yeah, I've got them here, John. Congratulations. I said, I need to see Kevin Miller. Kevin Miller had a 96% accuracy rate in science. I couldn't wait to tell Kevin when we got back from break. And on that Monday morning, he wasn't there. His mother had passed during the holiday, and he and his twin sister were split up to live with other relatives. I never saw him again. Well, that's not really true. Because years later, I had that moment that many of us have had. Years after we've taught a child, I'm sitting in the Pizza Inn in Memphis, Tennessee with my wife having dinner, and this grown man walks up to me and says, hey, Mr. Antonetti, is that you? And I looked at him, I said, it is. And is that you? He said, yeah, you don't remember my name, do you? And I said, I don't. You were in AP Chemistry, and you were really bright, and you sat over here, but I don't remember your name. He said, oh, I wasn't in AP Chemistry. I was in your Earth Science class. I said, what? He said, I'm Kevin Miller. I said, Kevin Miller, give me a hug, Kevin Miller. Coming at you, Kevin, coming at you. He said, what? I said, Kevin Miller, don't you remember Uranus? Look. My first year of teaching, I gave an assignment to draw a picture of a planet. He said, and I drew the planet, didn't I? I said, you did? Do you remember it? He said, yeah, man, because that was the first time it happened. I said, what? He said, you know, the first time it happened. I said, well, Kevin, I got to tell you, my wife framed it for me to remind me that it's not what I think in front of kids, it's what kids think in front of me that matters most. And you remember it, right? He said, as I said, it's the first time I felt it. I said, what? You felt what? He said, you know what I was supposed to feel third period? I said, I don't know what you're supposed to feel. What are you talking about? He said, Mr. Antonetti, I don't know if it was you or Mr. Heath or Miss Brown in the counseling office, but all of a sudden, for some reason, they put me in the gifted science class with Carla and Stephanie and those girls. I said, you were in the gifted class. That's right. And he said, and that was the first day I felt gifted. I said, oh my gosh, Kevin Miller, man, you've just made my day. So what are you doing now, buddy? He said, I'm a mechanic because of you. I said, I can't change my oil. That doesn't make sense. He said, no, Mr. Antonetti, you know what you used to do? We'd walk in, and on our tables, there'd just be a pile of stuff. And you'd say, it fit together this morning. And you'd say, put it back together. Or you'd give us something to read and say, I don't get it. Tell me what's going on. He said, that's what mechanics do. People come in and say, I don't know. And they pay me to fix it. See, after my mom died, Mr. Antonetti, I went to another school, and they discovered that I had a severe dyslexia problem. So we worked on my reading a lot. I went off to the Air Force. I became a mechanic, and I'm now the #2 mechanic at Northwest Airlines in Memphis, Tennessee. I said, Kevin, I travel around the country on Northwest. I am silver elite. Kevin Miller said, hey, Mr. Antonetti, when I was in your class in the 8th grade, did you ever think that someday your life would depend upon me? I said, Kevin, I did not, but buddy, I am absolutely okay with that. So he introduced me to his sons, and we talked a little bit more, and then off he went. I was about to sit back down, and I realized I am male, vision, pattern, emotion. But next to me is my wife, emotion. And she's going, and I said, okay, people can see me, do not talk to me now. I will walk out in front of you, and I will meet you in the car. We got seated in the dark car, and she said, may I speak now? I said, sure. And she said, congratulations, honey. Because that's the moment we all teach for. When a kid comes back and says, I got to think in your class. Thank you. Or a kid says, I'll never forget the time 20 years later. That's engagement. But my wife asked the question that actually led to all the research I've been trying to share this week, and it was this. John, how often do you think a kid leaves school in America going, today I got to be gifted? And you know what? I don't know how often it happens. I do know this. If they felt like their thoughts were valid and logical and appreciated, they will come back tomorrow. And that's engagement. I want to thank you guys for coming back from Monday to Tuesday, and Tuesday to Wednesday, and Wednesday to Thursday. I hope it's because... Thank you, guys. You were already my favorite. So in closing, this is what I learned from Kevin. I learned I've got to have Kevin in my face. A couple of people have asked today, and even in the question and answer, how do we take this work back? Find that kid. You know him. We all have a Kevin, a Mariah, or Dante, whatever it is. You know that kid. Literally get a picture of that child this summer. And the week before school starts, put it up somewhere in your home and think, what am I going to do for him? Because it's easy to get lost in the school improvement plan or this initiative and that initiative. We put that kid, my former business partner told me that, put that kid in front of you so that you're planning for him. And then a couple of days later, change the picture. I'm now going to plan for her. And a couple of days later, so that you really think about, what will I do for that one today? And what we're doing for that one will be what the others want as well. And we get a little more balance. So here's what we're going to ask you to do. You received a piece of paper when you walked in. Please fold it in the hot... No, it's already folded. It has stars on it to represent you as our teacher leaders. But I'm going to ask you to do this, and I'm not doing this to be manipulative. I am really asking this because the question was, how do we keep this going? The first step is to commit. So I'm going to ask you to take this piece of paper, and we're going to take just a minute. And I'd like you to write a letter to a child that you know, probably a child you taught in the past. You may not have this child again, but you're going to have another one just like him or her. And I'm going to ask you, and there are extras coming around, so if you need them, here they are. I'm going to ask you to write a letter to that child telling what you learned this week. And therefore, because we learned it, because we felt it, because we thought it, we promised to try to. No, we promised to, whether it's successful or not. We're not going to try. There is no try. That's Yoda, I believe. Okay. So I'm going to ask you, we're going to put 8 minutes on the clock to give you a chance to write to this child. When you are finished with your letter, fold it up, put it in the envelope. And in the envelope, please put your name and your school initials. We're going to mail it back to you shortly after school starts. So that you, in the middle of the craziness, will go, what is this? I know what this is. This is what I promised to do. This is what I'm going to do. So, little background music, please, sir. Working independently, please think of your learner and write that letter, and then we'll start to wrap this up. Okay. I have a feeling that will be a nice surprise in the fall when everything gets a little real. A couple people asked, so how do we share this with people who weren't here? You can't share this with people who weren't here. They haven't had this experience. Give them something to look at. I don't know what your child looks like, but a number of years ago, my wife and I had the opportunity to spend some time in New York. We saw an off-Broadway play called 13. It was the first play to make it to Broadway that featured an entire teenage cast and teenage orchestra. And it's the story of a whole bunch of 13-year-olds who know they're not who they think they are yet. Ariana Grande got her start by playing one of the roles in there. So I now thought I would sing like Ariana Grande for you. No, I'm not going to try that. But there is a song that I think is fitting to that, and the main character sings this the day after he turns 13 at his bar mitzvah. So, if you will, you know what they say, it's not over until, well, okay, if we can. A little bit louder, please, sir. Thanks. as I stand here before you, and you call me a man, and you're counting on me to come through. Well, you should know that I'll give you the best that I can, but we all have a little more homework to do. And if you're walking beside me and you want to be friends, well, know I'm depending on you. But you gotta hang with me till this whole story ends, 'cause we all have a little more homework to do. And I've been looking in the back of the book for the answers, hoping that bell won't chime. I'm not ready to put down my pencil just yet. There are too many answers that I didn't get. I need a little less pressure and a little more time. I'm trying to follow, and I'm trying to lead. I'm trying to find what is true. So I want you to come with me, but we have to concede that we all have a little more homework to do. I'm John Antonetti. I'm 55 years old, and I'm a learner. Thank you.